Hi, I'm Mark from the Endurance Store. This little video is just to talk a little bit about Petzl head torches, specifically related to trail running. I'm going to talk you through the Petzl range. We've chosen Petzl because, in essence, they are the world's leading manufacturer of head torches in the best quality, and we would firmly believe that if you buy cheap, you'll buy twice. And there's a lot of cheap head torches out there, but even the good quality ones are relatively inexpensive and cheaper than a pair of running shoes. So it's really important that you make the right decision when you're buying a head torch. So the Petzl range, it ranges from around the £40 mark up to £140, £150. And the difference in the head torch is there's a few key things that you need to look at. The first thing is the battery life, so how long it lasts. So if you're doing ultra races and you need something that really is going to last 10 or 12 hours. The type of light it provides, whether it's constant lighting or reactive lighting, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on. The brightness of the light, so you need around probably 90 to 100 lumens is sufficient for general trail running, but the faster you run, the more technical the trail, the more lumens you require, so brighter light you require. And the final thing is the beam pattern, and beam pattern is how the light spreads itself. So you might have a very wide spread of light, so it's a general light spreading over a wide area, or it might be a very focused beam, so if you look at something, it's almost like a spot on a point, and that, you know, is really important for trail running, whether you want to look at the trail ahead just in front of you, or whether you want to look up and just look at the general surroundings if you're looking for something that's, you know, in your peripheral vision. So the four torches I'm going to show you today. The first one, Whitacre XP. Now, Whitacre XP is a starter torch, around £45. A couple of things about this: it's constant lighting. And constant lighting means that you switch it on and then it just stays on at that brightness. Usually it will, over time it will dim as the batteries start to run out. And with this torch, you get about 10 or 12 hours worth of light. So when you switch it on, it will be bright initially, and over that 10-12 hour period, as the batteries start to wear down, the amount of light you get will drop. So the light here, when it's on its general constant setting, the light is 120 lumens. Remember, we said that somewhere between 90 and 100 is sufficient. So 120 lumens of light. And it's got a couple of different beam patterns that you can set it on. So you can have it on a more focused beam, or you can set it on a wider general beam. And the one downside of this torch really is that it's still on batteries. So you put the batteries in the back, and the batteries will obviously run out at some point, and the more you use it, the quicker they'll run out. And it's not just that the batteries run out, the quality of the light, the lumens that it's putting out, drops as the batteries get older. So it doesn't perform as well even after 2 or 3 runs. So it's a nice starter torch, but you might find yourself constantly buying new batteries for it, which is going to be expensive. And it's also if you turn up for a trail race or go out for a trail run and you realise that your batteries are flat, it's not always the easiest thing to then decide to go to the shop to buy some, so it becomes inconvenient. So from Whitacre XP, I'm going to step up to the Whitacre R+. So this is around the kind of £60–65 mark, the Whitacre R+. The difference with this, straight away, it's rechargeable USB, which makes a world of difference. Leave it plugged into your computer, plug it into a USB port in your car, and it will stay charged. The lumens on this are a little bit brighter, up to 170 lumens. Remember, we said 90 to 100 is probably your base requirement. Up to 170 lumens, so it's a brighter torch. And this isn't a constant lighting, so it isn't a simple matter of switch it on and the beam stays the same. This uses Petzl's reactive lighting technology. Now, what that means is that if you're running and there's street lights and you can see where you're going, the torch will actually dim. Whereas if you run into the woods then and it's very, very dark, the torch will then go brighter. So it reacts to the light around it, and it also reacts to the light bouncing back. So if you're wearing this torch and you were looking at a map in your hand, the light would bounce back off the map, and the torch would dim itself to the right amount of light to read your map. If you look down at the ground, then the light will come back from the ground, and it will give you the right amount of light to look at what you're trying to see ahead of you on the trail. So reactive lighting is quite a clever little bit of technology, and it also adjusts the beam pattern. So if you were to look up and look at something in the distance, and maybe you're trying to spot something, the beam pattern adjusts to a narrower beam, and the same if you look down on the trail. So it will widen and narrow as you need it to. And it's kind of hard to explain how it works, but it almost like it reads your mind a little bit. So when you look up and you're trying to see something, or you look down and you're trying to look at something, it kind of knows what you're doing, and it alters the beam pattern and alters the light. So stepping up from the R+, this is the Whitacre RXP. Very similar, reactive lighting technology, so it alters your beam pattern, alters the brightness of the torch. It's also rechargeable again, so you save on the batteries. A bit more expensive now, stepping up to £80–85, but you know, still cheaper than a decent pair of trainers. The difference for the £20 is that it's up to 215 lumens rather than 170 lumens, so it's a bit brighter, and you get a couple of extra hours on the battery as well, so maybe from 10 hours up to 12 hours just lasts a little bit longer. So a little bit longer battery life and a little more lumens, a bit more power on the torch. Final torch I'm going to show you. This is a Petzl now. One of the things about the Petzl now is it's got its battery pack here on the back. For the R Plus and the RXP, the battery pack is actually built into the back of the head unit. So you can see it's just a strap there, whereas this one has a battery pack on the back. So some people, you know, they don't want that weight on the back of the head bouncing around. So maybe it's a comfort thing that you want to just try it on and run on a treadmill or something before you make a decision. But really the difference in this one, big step up in price, going over the £100 mark now, but it's because of the brightness. So the brightness of this torch now up to 575 lumens, so that's a really powerful torch. It's got the reactive lighting again, so it alters the light, it alters the beam pattern, but it's a super bright torch, so more than double what we've seen on the other torches. Battery life again, 10 to 12 hours on the general setting, so it'll get you through a night. So in essence, what you are really paying for is the brightness. It's actually changed the Petzl now in the last year. When they brought it out, the battery life wasn't brilliant on it, and it wouldn't get you through a full night. Whereas they've changed it now, realising their error, and they've got a much longer battery life now. One other thing that's worth mentioning with the reactive technology, a lot of people have said that if you're running and it's quite misty, that the light of your torch can bounce back off the mist, and the glare bounce back causes the torch to dim because it senses the light coming back. Now, to get around that, all of the torches which have reactive technology, you can just lock them on constant mode, so you don't have to have them on reactive lighting. But to be truthful, even if your torch isn't reactive and it's just a constant lighting mode, so it just has one beam at one strength, if you're running in the mist, you can't really see where you're going anyway, and the light is going to bounce back at you, so it's not as if there's any real difference in visibility. I think perhaps, you know, people will always find fault with, you know, whatever torch is brought out there on the market. And on the whole, the reactive lighting works really well. It's a great function, and as I mentioned previously, you know, it kind of does what you want it to do, and it's almost like it's reading your mind. It knows when to get brighter, and it knows how to adjust the beam pattern.